Welcome back to Einstein Media Center, your one-stop shop for all unnecessary media dissection. Today, we are joined with a very special guest. We are joined with Kicksie. Kicksie, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thanks for having me.
Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, what kind of music you play, all of that?
Yeah, sounds good. I'm a musician based out of Toronto. And Kicksie is my solo project, although when I do play live shows, I have a band behind me, and they are lovely, lovely guys. And historically, we've been playing mostly music inspired by more punk from the early 2000s and a lot of Midwest emo from the 2010s and such. But nowadays, we've kind of taken a different direction, and I started making much more, I'd like to call it like alternative R&B. There's still definitely like a punky flavor to it, but I'm very inspired by R&B, neo soul, that kind of music these days. So that's kind of what I'm up to.
I want to get into that, but real quick, I think you have like an auto-tune thing going on with your voice.
I do have an auto tune pedal. Oh my god. Yes. Okay, so my mic is plugged in through my pedal board. I just thought it was the easiest thing to do, and I do have an auto tune pedal, and she definitely wanted to make an appearance.
That's
I
awesome.
think it's off now, right? You don't
Yeah,
hear
yeah, you should. When we first got on, I was like, it like kind of sounds like auto-tune a little, and then you started talking, and I was like, oh yeah, okay.
the most insane introduction of all time.
So, a lot of your old work was, like you said, a lot of like Midwest emo inspired. I feel like on your most recent album, there was a lot of, to your point, like, soul and R&B influences, and I felt like a lot of almost like just straightforward pop influences that I really like. Is that like something that you've always drifted towards? Did you always like some of those more mainstream and pop type sounds?
I think the goal originally was to try and make a more poppy sound. The issue that I faced really early on just came from not really having the equipment to make something that sounded that sleek. And so I was always like too insecure to actually do the pop thing. And then I think I tried it for a little bit, and it was very bedroom pop and very, exactly what you would expect from a small musician. But kind of as I grew, it became much easier to head in that direction just because I obviously got better equipment, and I was able to obviously I improved as well, like with my mixing and stuff like that. So it just kind of came naturally, but definitely always something that I wanted to do for sure.
Nice. And now when it comes to like playing guitar and other instruments and mixing and production work, are you like all self-taught in that? How did you come about doing all that stuff?
Yes, I am all self-taught, and to this day, I've pretty much recorded all of the instruments on my records, and I've mixed them all, and I mastered it, and I still do that. It honestly, it just saves me money. I started doing it when I was in high school, and I like once again did not have access to all the cool things, so I'm like, I might as well just do this. For myself, and I enjoy mixing quite a bit. So I'm happy to do it. But yeah, all self-taught. I did go to college for production at some point in my life. It was like an 8-month program. I went to Seneca, which is this college in Toronto, and I took independent music production. Um, I I already like pretty much knew how to do most of the things that they were teaching us, but it still was like a great year to just relearn some basics or learn just like tiny new little things that I didn't really know. It was very, very helpful for me to kind of go back to the beginning and actually be taught things. And yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. I have to say, I listened to your most recent album like maybe 6 or 7 times over the last 2 days in
Yeah.
prep for
Thank
this.
you.
One thing I really loved about it, and I think it really shined on this compared to some of your earlier work, was the production seemed to be really layered. I was always like able to find, a new little guitar lick or like maybe, a bass line that I wasn't able to identify the first time. Was like focusing on that more layered production something you were like consciously doing, or was that just something that happened with experience?
Um, I I don't know. I'm not sure if it was fully conscious. I mean, when I am producing, it's mostly like I'm just gonna throw everything at the wall and kind of just like see what sticks. I'm pretty sure that's the saying. If it's not, yikes. But anyways, um, but I'll I'll add way too much to the point where it's like I can't even tell what's going on, and then I'll start to peel back the layers. But I just kind of want to exhaust all my options as far as like little ear candies and like little tidbits and things like that. So I guess it's half conscious, half not. Um, and yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. Like I said, it was something that I really enjoyed listening. So that's really fun.
Mhm.
Um, Speaking of throwing everything at the wall, when you were releasing stuff initially on Bandcamp and then, I guess in the late 2010s, you were releasing stuff constantly, you were very prolific, as it were. Was it like helpful for you as a songwriter to take a few years to write your most recent album?
Definitely. I think that's exactly what's happening now. We just finished doing the last record that's going to be out later in the summer, and that took like 3 years, I think, total from start to finish because I had started it a month before Slouch had come out, and I just finished it like last month. So, it back in the day when I first started, I could write a whole record in 3 months, and it was very quick. But also my um my standards, I guess, kind of improved over time, which is why, like post, let's say Mad Dash, like it really started taking me time to work on these things. Whereas before I was just like, yeah, I'll record guitar and do this and that, and that's pretty much all I know how to do, so it's done. And then it just kind of that time just kind of came later on. But yeah, it's a huge, like, it's been really good to kind of sit and actually take time on the songs and just make sure everything's perfect, which um is not really something I did in the past, but once again, I wasn't really sure how. So yeah, but yeah.
So, um, from the writing process that you had during Slouch and now this new writing process, like what has changed between these two records for you when it comes to writing the music or recording it?
Wow. Well, a lot of what changed, there was a few things. Um, I took these songs to my band for the first time and like really actually got to sit with my bandmates and like it was the first time that I truly had like a group of people recording and working on this record. I still engineered it all and whatnot, but mainly I had my bassist Alex play bass, of course, and then my drummer Morgan played drums, obviously. But they brought a whole new life to the songs that I don't think I could have ever. Writing it and bringing it to them, something that changed initially was instead of programming MIDI drums, which is something that I normally tended to do, I started chopping and kind of splicing up like old 70s funk drum beats to kind of make the drums underneath the record, um, which sounded all right in the demos, but when Morgan was able to take them and actually get to play around with it when we went and recorded it, he just, yeah, he blew it way out of the water. It's yeah, oh my gosh. It's like the first time that I feel like the songs sound like real songs, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, most things changed because yeah, it's been a long 3 years. So,
Now, given that this is the first time you're kind of incorporating your band in the songwriting process, that's got to be kind of scary because it's been such a personal thing for so long. What was the driving decision, and what made you think that this was the right time now?
I think my skills as an instrumentalist when it comes to playing drums and bass, um, I can't I as much as I would love to be the best at everything, I just can't. And like having musicians that actually know how to play their instrument really well makes a huge difference. Um, and I think the main thing was just almost just like time and like learning how to trust these guys. Like both of them have been a part of the Kicksie project for years at this point. Like Alex has been working on Kicksie stuff since I want to say 2019 or so, and Morgan, I think he came aboard in 2021. So I've heard the way that they've played songs that I brought to them that were already done, and what like playing them live, what kind of like life that they really brought to them. And I was like, whoa, I've got to get these guys to actually play on the record. That, and on top of that, I was bringing them the new songs to play live while I was still working on them. So I was like actively listening to what they were doing while we were playing it live. And I was like, well, I like this. So we're going to go and record it now. So,
Nice, that's really cool.
mhm.
And you said something that I just have to like ask more about. So you were splicing up like old 70s drums for your demos. Is like sampling or something like that, is like that a technique that you're interested in? Like what made you go in that direction? That's just a really interesting and cool thing to do.
Um, I'm not I'm not fully sure. I think I've always been pretty inspired by early 2000s and like 90s hip hop and stuff like that, specifically the percussion and the drums and whatnot. And I'm also just like ultimately a huge Tyler the Creator fan and a huge, Frank Ocean fan. And I'm that person, so it's been interesting to try and um take those influences and kind of bring them into what I'm very comfortable with, which is punk and emo and all that. Because I really always wanted to go in that direction. I just wasn't fully sure how. And so I just thought that, hey, this might be a good idea. Like, what if I tried to do this? And it ended up being really, really cool. Like I enjoyed doing that so much. That's something that I think I might continue to do in the future as well. And also it's just easier just like throwing a drum loop down and cutting it up than it is just to actually figure out the drums. So I mean, it saves me so much damn time. Like I can't even tell you.
That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah.
Um, it I also love Tyler the Creator. Like, to me, like his production is just so interesting and cool, and like he has this thing. Sorry, I'm gonna go on a
Hey,
tangent.
go on. I'm here for it.
He he does this thing like I play piano, and when you hear his production, when you hear his songwriting, like he has this thing that I call like piano brain, where it's almost like you could see the keys, like you could see the
Yeah.
chords, and like I just love that sound. And honestly, like I totally get what you're saying when you're right, listening to your music. Like I could see that vision too.
Mhm.
So, speaking of the new record, I saw you put out a little teaser on Instagram a few hours ago, actually.
I did. That was a few hours ago.
New song coming out. So, can you tell me a little bit about, what the sound of this record really is going to be? Are we going to hear more of slouch? Are we going in a totally different direction? What is it gonna be like?
I mean, I would say that there are moments where it is, it's familiar, it's can be pretty slouch, it can be, but for the most part, I really took it in an entirely different direction. I I once again, those drum loops, I mean, hey, they they did wonders for actually like fleshing out songs and stuff like that. And when I was writing Slouch, I was just kind of starting my journey into like discovering like as much of kind of R&B and that kind of sound, but I feel like it wasn't really fully realized. So taking the 3 years to actually, dive into it and recreate what has been Kicksie has been pretty interesting. I would say that there are a lot of familiar moments. Once again, like um, I tend to have the arrangements of my songs like tend to be pretty Kicksie, pretty familiar on pretty much every song ever. There's like, the quiet verse, the big chorus, and then lots of stoppy parts and all that. So that stays the same, um, but the sound is, I would say I would like to say it's entirely different. I don't know, like maybe it's just me, but but hey.
So, is that something like you are striving to do now that you have like more experience, more resources, or is it just like as a creative, you're like, I don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again, and it's like you need to fulfill something inside of you.
Hmm. I I I'm definitely happy with it's been, I don't know. I've never really been able to figure out kind of what the Kixie sound is. I think I've always had, I don't know, like I don't want to be like dissing on my influences and or whatever, but I feel like listening to emo over and over for years and years, it just kind of is like the same thing at some points, and it gets pretty exhausting after a while. So it was like I feel like I needed to branch out, and then that on top of, there's just something, I'm a Leo, so like I always have to be doing the most all the time, and I really wanted to find something cool and interesting that I don't hear a lot of, and always thought that it'd be really cool to like blend those two sounds together in a way that seems like it's supposed to fit. Um, so yeah, it was, at least writing this new record was a lot of like taking jazz chord shapes and kind of those types of chord progressions, and then kind of like turning up the overdrive on them and making them really crunchy, and I'll take like the funk drum beats and then I'll bring them to Morgan, and then he plays them like a little harder, and he figures out a bunch of different things to do with them, and it's interesting to kind of to to be able to push that a little bit. Um, um, but yeah, I think I lost my original point on this. I did have something I wanted to say that was like that was but hey.
I think that was perfect. That was great.
Thank you.
It's actually funny you said something there where you're like trying to take all these more complex or like music theory oriented chords and like put them in a more pop facing type of song. One of the questions I actually have written down is regarding closure. In like the beginning of closure, it's like you do this little like bluesy pentatonic chord progression, and my question is like, are you trying to push yourself to be like more in tune with music theory? And if these are the things that you're thinking about, are you trying to make yourself stand out amongst that broader emo crowd?
For sure, I think I'm not great with music theory. I've been learning my chord shapes, but I've never been great with it. But I think it's so interesting and I love it so much. And I think Closure is a good example of of me trying my best, I guess. And
I feel so validated.
oh yeah, I think out of all the songs on Slouch, Closure for sure, I think remains my favorite because it might be the closest to what I'm doing now. Um, just kind of trying to, take those chords and push them a little more. Um, but yeah, I think it's definitely I'm definitely, trying to stand out a little bit where I can, and I love a little chromatic, a little nah nah nah, like the the thing I just drop all over Closure. It's like my favorite. Um, but I honestly am not super great at music theory. I'm trying to learn. I'm doing my best, but I've never been like super academic or anything like that. So it's been pretty tough. But yeah, definitely better at it than I was originally. And in the future I'm going to keep trying and hopefully
I
get
mean,
better at that.
it's like what you were saying about production. You got better over the years. It's
Hey, that's true.
you know, uh, life is a slow process.
It is. It's quite slow.
We've established that you kind of write a lot, and for Slouch, you had some time to come up with a crop of songs, and for this new record you did, I'm sure you write a ton that ends up on the cutting room floor. How do you decide like what really ends up on the album and what you just have to, let go to the wayside?
I you know, yes, I do write a lot. I normally tend to drop songs that I'm writing like 2 hours in if I don't really see any potential in them. Like I feel like from the beginning I will know what is worth keeping and what's not worth keeping by the time I'm done with a session. So I don't have too many like songs that are pretty fleshed out that don't like end up on the record, but mainly when I start a project, I'm always focused. Like I'm always thinking in projects more than I am EPs and singles. Like I really love the album release process and just having full, just having a good 13 songs to kind of define your last couple of years. Um, and normally, how I do that is I'll write a song one day randomly for no reason, and I'm like, well, okay, great, we're gonna do a record now. Like the first the first song that I had written for this newest record that we just did, ended up being the outro track because from the very beginning I was like, oh, this is gonna be the outro track on my new record, so now I've got to write everything else around it. And I'll sit and I'll be like, today I'm gonna write an intro song, or today I don't have enough songs that are like this, so I need to write this kind of song, or I don't have enough interludes, so I need to write this kind of song. I almost like give myself little assignments to complete, I guess, if that makes sense. Instead of just like writing for fun and then putting a bunch of like the best ones on a record. But in doing that, it took me a few tries to get the right intro song, and it took me a few tries to get the right interludes and whatnot. But that's just kind of how my brain works. But I'm always able to tell if a song is just not great. This is trash. I'm just gonna drop this right now and try again. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, that leads to another question. I was going to ask you about why, because to me, that's such a departure from the rest of the album. And
Mhm.
although it's a bit more stripped back on Slouch, I was like, the fact that it's just you and the guitar, it's so attention grabbing. It's so like, oh, I gotta key into this one.
Mhm.
It sounds like you really take to heart, album sequencing and everything is very intentional. I- I'm a dork. I love that kind of stuff. But so that it I guess I'm just confirming like that's something you really care about is like
Oh yeah.
sequencing and to me 12, 13 songs, you hit it right on the money there.
Oh yeah. Exactly, yeah. Why yeah, that was exactly it. That song, I was like, "Oh, I guess I need an interlude." But But I mean, obviously I'm not writing song like I'm feeling a certain type of way in that moment, and so obviously the songs do mean something to me, but I'm just like, today I'm gonna write an interlude, and then I came up with that and I was like, yep. But yeah, sequencing is also like incredibly important to me. I try to kind of lay out track lists by how I could see myself playing them at like a live show. So I'll normally do like really, really upbeat songs in the beginning, and then, the middle is just kind of there. And there's like, a song where the band leaves the stage and I have my guitar, and then, the big songs come back in for the end and whatnot. I definitely try to kind of place it like that. So normally, when we go to play it live, we just play it in order because I don't really need to do much other work to that. But yeah, I love track listing and doing and figuring it all out, because it can make a huge difference. It's like some songs like that you wouldn't expect to have, like for this newest record, I had this track list in my mind. This is just an example that like I really, really, really thought was like perfect. And then I took it to my manager and she was like, what if we did this instead? And she pretty much flipped it like entirely upside down, with the exception of like the intro and the outro. And I was like, I'm like really upset about this. But then I sat and I listened to it, and it gave certain songs a different spotlight that like I wasn't like giving them originally. And it almost makes them feel different when they're put next to different. It's really interesting. I would have never expected it, but she was right. I took a few days on the newest track list that she had kind of made, and I was like, wait, like she's right about this. And so, yeah.
I that's a very mature response to take that feedback. To me, that's got to be like almost heartbreaking. It's like you took my baby and turned it all around.
Oh yeah, I know. It was because originally we had 15 songs, and then she even suggested we take out 2 songs and make it 13 songs, which we did end up doing. That was heartbreaking because I was like, but wait, I wrote every song for a specific different reason, and these are my interludes, and these are this, and exactly like how I was explaining it before. So to have her like completely flip everything on its head, I was like, but this isn't right. But she ended up being right. I think a lot of the issues I think we were facing with the new record is just that the 2 songs we took out, they just weren't. I think my main goal is that I really wanted to push the alternative R&B kind of thing, and there was just a couple songs that were too reminiscent of my old music, and it just wasn't. They weren't good enough by themselves to make it worth having them, almost like filler tracks. And I was like not married to either of them. I think when I listened to the new track list she had given me, I was pretty I was like, you know what, this feels right. Because normally when I was listening to it before, those were the 2 songs I was skipping anyway. I was listening to it. So I was like, I mean, I should have been listening to my heart, but like I wasn't. And it was just kind of, yeah. But so I'm glad she brought that up. I'm glad she did that for me, because I don't know if I would have been able to do that myself.
Yeah, wow, that's pretty powerful actually.
Yeah.
Especially, going back and reflecting, it's like, well, even I was skipping these.
Even I was skipping these. Like, I did not want to work on these tracks.
Oh, that's too funny.
Oh, yeah.
So, is that, I know this album's not even out yet, but like, um, applying that kind of lesson, like bringing other people in, have you been trying to do stuff like that in other aspects of, whatever the making of the band is, whether, what it's a tour, it's a live set, etc., just getting other people's input there?
For sure. This was definitely the first time that I really outsourced a lot of things, my opinions. I even at one point had a Google Drive folder with all the demos, and then I had a Google Doc with all the lyrics, and then I would just like send them out to my friends and my manager and just like a bunch of people, and they were commenting on like different lines and stuff that they liked or didn't like. And it was the first time that I actually, and then there was like some arguments in the Google comments. Like it was great. I was loving it. But I've never really done that before where I had it be almost like a little community project sort of thing. Because I started and I was like the only person even in my town, or even the only person I knew that was doing music. So I started very like secluded and very alone, and so it was kind of hard to break out of that 4 albums later, when it's like I've been doing something for so long just a certain way, and like I'm not necessarily bad at receiving criticism, but it's weird to receive criticism, you know, for the first time ever on music. And a lot of the criticisms completely changed songs in ways that I was like, I would have never thought to do these things if I didn't have that kind of help, right? So I definitely I learned some very valuable lessons about like how like just music. I People say it all the time, like you can't really do it alone. Like music really is a community effort, and it's really important to, you know, be a part of that community and stuff. And I never really fully realized it until I did this record. But yeah, some super important lessons for sure.
I mean, that's really cool. Like you said, it's really hard to take criticism. It seems like you've taken everything in stride. So, you know, props
Mhm.
to you.
Doing my best.
I don't think I'd be able to stomach that. I feel like I would get too upset.
It's tough, but I also I'm really picky about the way I do songs, but and I've got an ego and a pride when it comes to like doing my music, but on top of that, I have this burning like self-deprecating voice in the back of my head. And so that those two things together, it's you know, it they kind of cancel each other out. It kind of makes me like, I'm always like, is this good? And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm like, is it? And then I have someone be like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, oh, I knew that. Or it'd be like, you know, this could be improved on. And I was like, I was literally going to do that anyway when I wasn't. So yeah.
It makes you a whole person.
Yeah. I guess that's true.
I was reading to go back to talk a little bit about Slouch. You know, just humor me here. I was reading another interview where you were talking about the song Boyfriend, and you thought it was fun because you kind of get to put on an act almost like maybe it's not representative of who you feel you are in real life.
Hmm.
Um, has, you know, coming to that realization inspired you to write, you know, more songs where it's almost like, you know, the song itself is a bit of a performance of who you are, so you get to like put on a mask a little bit. Is that like inspired anything in your new album writing cycle?
Yes, Boyfriend, actually, that was the first time I really was like, you know, let me play this little character where, you know, I'm stealing your girl or whatever, and like it was fun to do it. I don't love Boyfriend as a song. I think the hook in the chorus is good, but I think the rest of the song, I wish that I could have done it better. I don't know. There's just something about it for me, but that song was really important for me to write because it was the first time I've ever tried to do that. And on this record, most of it is me playing this persona, almost a similar persona where it's just like overly confident, like pop music, and that I've it's really fun because that whole persona is very it's very upbeat, it's very in your face, and it just works really well with some instrumentals that I'm doing and whatnot. And it's also just fun to to play that little person, um and to like, you know, feel your oats every once in a while. So I did that a lot on this record, and it's some of the most fun songs I think that I have on it. So
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I personally love Boyfriend. I was driving back from work today singing it, blasting it in the
Oh
car and
my
singing it.
God. Thank you. I did it for the people, not for me. It was for the people.
Regarding your new record, you're in your pop bag.
I'm
Correct
in my
me if
pop bag.
I'm correct me if I'm wrong here, but when I was listening to the snippet on Instagram, I was like, I feel like there's a little bit of almost a hyper pop influence to like some of that production.
Yes. You know, so I don't okay. All right. Okay, all right, hold on. I don't it's not I don't listen to that much hyper pop. I don't. The thing that really makes it sound very hyper poppy is I took that little, sometimes Frank will like pitch up his vocals in music, and that's also something that hyperpop does a lot. And I did not realize at the time that when I was testing that out, because I thought that'd be fun and cool and interesting to do, it definitely was, but it fully was giving it was fully giving hyperpop. Like a lot of the songs were, even though not really that wasn't fully my intention. I did end up taking that on the intro track, and I did lean into the hyper pop ness of it all, and that's like the only time where I'm like, yeah, like this was definitely like hyper pop, inspired or whatnot, but not. I think the production is so cool, and I wish that I could do it, and I just think it's some of the coolest music ever. I love listening to it. I love hearing it. It just there's something about those like sped up drum parts that just tickle my brain in a way that I can't describe. and and yeah, I wish that I could say that I was like, yes, like this was fully intentional, but it so wasn't. It just so wasn't.
That's really funny then, but I'm glad, we're getting a little bit of that on that first song. That's gonna
Oh
be
yeah.
fun. But it sounds like to me, Nike's by Frank Ocean is the first hyperpop song ever.
Yes, Nike's might be the first hyperpop song ever written, because yeah, I heard that and I was like, mine. I'm gonna do that too.
New album coming out at the end of the summer, you said?
Beginning of the summer. It should be out by like June or so.
Oh, let's go. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be so great.
So does that mean potential tour coming up too?
We'll see. There's not fully anything in the works yet. There's a lot of things happening um with Canada and the United States that I'm just gonna let all that play out, and I'm not gonna be a part of that. I'm I'm gonna not apply for visas right now because there's no way I'm getting them. Um so I'm gonna like hopefully wait for better days and then start applying for my visas again.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would love to. I think definitely the goal would be to tour sometime after the record is done. Um when we had gotten back from our last tour, I think it was last winter that we had toured. We wanted to get right back on the road, but then I kind of jumped ship a little bit, and I was like, actually, let me just focus on writing some new music right now. So I'm glad I did that, um because I these songs that I've written since then, I'm so excited to actually just get to play them and have them out. Pretty much our whole live set now is just unreleased stuff, because I'm so excited to like get these songs out there. Just because it is so different from what I was doing previously, and it's like it's almost like at this point, having Slouch, I know 3 years is, like, really not that long, but I guess in, like, a musician's world it is, especially considering, like, we improve so much as, like, the years go on and stuff, that, like, you listen back to your old work and you're like, "Oh my god," but I'm really trying to, we'll see. I think that record did great things, but I'm really excited to just kind of lay a lot of those songs to rest, just because, um just because yeah, I'm just like thrilled about what I've been doing recently. Um so yeah, but there's that.
I mean,
Hopefully we'll get something soon. We'll tour eventually soon when I can apply for my visas again. That would be really great.
yeah, Kicksie US Tour 2029.
I don't at this rate, maybe. Honestly, like I'm scared. Gotta
Yeah,
say.
that I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It must be tough because musicians do really release. I mean, some musicians release like an album every year or every other year. Like it's got to be tough, keeping yourself in the zeitgeist, but also taking the time to improve on your craft. What's that balancing act like?
Oh, it's it's horrible. It's like at the time this was like at one point the best thing that you've done, and like this is like, your most recent release and stuff like that, and you're just so excited to, play those songs and have them out in the world and be like, yes, this is me, this is like currently what I'm up to and all that. But staying quiet and not being able to just immediately drop everything you do after that, and especially when you're working on like records, doing records is really tough because those take a really long time. And um this has been like a huge issue, at least for me right now, is just I just think about the fact that I've got so much that like I'm so excited for people to hear, but then it's like, at least for right now, it almost feels like stepping stones or like milestones, in a sense where everyone still knows me as like Slouch Kicksie, but I don't know me as Slouch Kicksie anymore because I have a whole other thing going on. So it's really weird trying to balance that, for sure, where it's like, where it's everyone's like, hell yeah, Slouch, you're on. And I'm like, I know, right, guys? But also like in my head, I'm like, but but wait, like but wait, because so balancing that is really, really tough. I definitely think it comes down to giving each album it's like, time to shine, and it's like its own little place, I guess, within the world that you're building as far as like your discography goes and whatnot. So nowadays it's been a lot easier, I think, I guess, number one, knowing that I've only got to wait like 3 more months, and like two, just accepting Slouch for what it was and like what it is. And it was so much fun like playing that record and being like Slouch Kicksie and like and all that, for sure. And just, having that as like is like, yeah, fine, we'll play You're On every once in a fine. I'll give it to you every once in a while, fine. Fine, we'll do it.
Yes, gotta slouch Kicksie, gotta go make way for hyperpop Kicksie.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Get ready, people, because
So like, on your upcoming sets, are you still gonna try and give people a little bit of, your on or boyfriend or anything like that, or is it out the door for a while and maybe you'll bring that stuff back later?
normally I will play You're On, I'll play Sinking In. I haven't played anything else in a really long time. The last time that we were kind of, playing a lot, I played mostly Slouch, and then I think I played one new song. And then eventually it became 2 new songs and then 3 new songs, and I was kind of like, taking the other ones off, and I was like, oh, wait a second. And now it's pretty much just down to You're On. I think we played a set like a week ago where it was the first time that I hadn't played Sinking In since it had come out, and we had like replaced it with a different song, and it was like just You're On. And I was like, this is weird. And also I feel bad because like before shows, people will be like, are you gonna play this tonight? Are you gonna play this tonight? I'm like, I'm actually giving you a fully unreleased set. Like, no one's gonna know any words, you guys. Like, no one's gonna know nothing. But I can't help it. I just physically can't. I don't know. So
I I kind of love that, staying true to your artistic self. It's like
I guess so.
I don't care what the fans want.
I don't care what you guys, but I'm gonna play songs that nobody knows except for me.
Hey, I
And
mean, like, you gotta keep yourself inspired, and if
yeah.
you don't want to burn yourself out on stuff that it's like you don't want to resent it in the future.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I think a big reason why I was making that decision as well was because when I was writing Slouch, I didn't have too much live performing experience. Like I was playing local gigs and I was definitely not touring yet at that point. So when I was writing this record post, I've been on the road for months at a time at that point, it was just like I was writing songs that I knew were going to be fun to play live. Like I was able to kind of put myself in that headspace and make specific decisions like, oh my God, this is going to be great to play live. So, of course, those songs are so much more fun to play live because I have these, like, I had it in mind while I was writing it. Whereas before, I was just kind of writing songs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah.
nice. So I got a few more questions, but when it comes to touring, are there any specific cities that either like you can't wait to get back to, or you're really excited to get to for the first time?
Ooh, I loved a lot of the cities we played. I think playing in the States, being a Canadian artist, that most of my actually pretty much everyone on the Kicksie team is all American and they're all based in different places in America. And a lot of, I'm pretty sure the States, I think actually, no, I'm like certain that the States is like the biggest country that listens. Like Canada and Toronto even is not, I'm not sure if they're like number one. I'm like on my like listening whatever. So it was really interesting for us to go down there because we were playing to crowds that were bigger than the crowds we played at home a lot of the time. So that made every city great. It was awesome. But I really loved Philly. I loved Philly. I have to go back. We got an amazing bagel at Philly. I mean, in Philly, we got not one amazing bagel. We each got a amazing bagel. And that was great. It was a great experience. Washington D.C. was so much fun. Um, Little Rock, for some
Okay.
reason, was great. I'm not sure why, but it was fantastic there. Um, I loved a lot of the places. I loved Denton and a lot of the places in Texas I really enjoyed. Um Grand Rapids was another great city. Chicago was a great city. A lot of good cities. I think I really enjoyed the East Coast though, more than anything. I guess that's where it's the easiest to get to.
Yeah.
So that's normally where I am. But a lot of those cities were just like so much fun to play and it's just I absolutely must go back. It's yeah. And then of course, like on a tour stop, always coming home is like the most exciting part. So I will also say Toronto, specifically on a tour run, because it's like, hell yeah, I'm home and it's great, right?
Yeah.
So I will say that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, when you come back to the States, I'll be looking for you. If you're near me, even if I have to travel, I'll definitely be there.
Hell yeah. Where are you located?
I I'm originally from New York, and I recently moved to North Carolina. So you
Hey.
know, um, all the artists that I like to see, it's like they're all like in Brooklyn, in
Yep.
Manhattan, and I'm like, I just left, can't
I
see
j-
half
I
of you
just
people. Few more things, just kind of
Mhm.
fun ones. We talked about, album sequencing and whatnot. Can you give me like three albums that, you think are like, I don't want to say perfectly sequenced, but like something up there, or like something that is inspired you when you're doing your album sequencing?
Hmm. Hmm. That's a great question. You know, I think Blonde might be one of the best records of all time, and I would have loved to say it, but I do think there are a bunch of songs in there that I'm like I just there's a few of them where I'm like, all right, buddy, like, come on, it didn't have to be 17 tracks. But
The Frank fans are gonna come for you.
I know, I'm sorry. No, listen, you guys, please, but I still love it, and when I listen to it top to bottom. I just think personally wouldn't have been my choice. So it wouldn't have been my idea. I think I have a playlist of all my favorite records. I'm going to open it up right now because I'm not going to be able to answer this otherwise. But I will say Igor, I think, is a perfect record from top to bottom. I think I recently listened to Death Grips for the first time, The Powers That Be.
Okay.
And by recently, I mean about a year ago. So and I thought that was a fantastic record. I think and I think Claro Charm, perfect record.
Oh
Perfect
my
record.
goodness.
I've never been a huge Claro fan until she dropped that, and some of the songs, the musicians on that I can't. Perfect record. I loved the sequencing on it. And Masterpiece, Big Thief, another perfect record in my opinion.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. I
another
love that record.
like not one song out of place. I'll drop those for now. I think those are all it's good enough.
Um, Charm, that was my favorite record last year, so I
Oh, it
totally
was
get
great.
that. I hadn't played piano in probably 7 years, and the first time I heard Juna, I was like, "Oh, I need to learn this on piano immediately."
Absolutely.
That song, like, that blew me away. I totally agree. That L. Michaels Affair,
Mhm.
Leon Michaels produced that. Like, the instrumentation on that album is so crazy.
Oh, I
I
love it.
love it.
It was shocking. Like I was shocked when I heard it for the first time. I was like, wow. It was
Yeah,
great. I was not expecting it to be one of my favorite records of the year at all. I just spun it for fun, changed my life forever.
totally agree. Because I agree. I was not a big Claro fan until last year, and now I was like, oh, she's perfect.
Yeah. She's perfect. Wow, amazing. Exactly. I feel the same way.
That's funny. So
Mhm.
then, last question. Always like to ask about your local food delicacies. If I were to go to Toronto, what's like the food I need to be trying?
Oh my god. Okay. There's a This is the first one that's coming. There's a God, I don't know why my there's an Egg Smart that's like right by my intersection where I live that has been like under construction for like so long, but like I'm so excited to get Egg Smart when it opens back up. I'm definitely not gonna say that though is my answer. Down the street from me, there's a brown sugar pancake place where they do pancakes and inside there's like a brown sugar filling and you have to be really careful because it's really hot and it will get all over your clothes and I don't know what it's called. I'm gonna look it up. I don't know what the place is called because the sign on top isn't in English, so I don't even know how I'm gonna be able to look it up. All I know is the location. It's on Bloor Street somewhere, and it's like a little red sign, and you just walk in. It's like $3 a pancake. You give them a pancake. It's great. It's I don't know. I wish I could be more helpful than that, but just know that somewhere on Bloor Street there's a pancake place, and it's just awesome.
Perfect. I'll keep it in mind if I ever
Oh
make it
yeah.
up there.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. It was so great to talk to you. I cannot wait for the new album. Everybody, go spin Slouch because you'll never hear it live anymore.
You won't hear it again, I promise.
But you got anything else to plug besides new album out? You said in June.
Yep. New album in June. The first song comes out April 4th. It actually has nothing to do with the record itself. It was just a fun little song that I decided to drop ahead of time. But hey, it's still in the same world, so I mean, yeah, that'll be out April 4th, and then there'll be a single every month until the record in June. And yeah, should be fun, should be great. We're gonna have lots of fun. That's about really all I have to plug. Um, but yeah,
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate you stopping by, and I'll talk to you soon. And looking forward to the album.
of course. Thank you so much for having me. This was so nice.
I just wanted to come in and say, huge, huge, huge thank you to Kicksie for coming and talking to me. They are so kind and funny and insightful, and everybody I've been able to talk to, it's really been nice, because truly I am a fan first, and it's always so nice when you find an artist whose music you just deeply connect with, and that's truly how I felt with Kicksie's music, and just being able to talk to them and laugh and chat. Like, art is just a beautiful thing, and again, thank you so much for coming to chat. It's very, very awesome that I get to do this. I'm so grateful to everybody who responds. This is your first time here, leave a comment, let me know who I should be reaching out to next. Like I said, I just truly love to do this. It's so great to talk to people who share the same passions and, all of that. But down in the basement, again, as always, let's go see if I could bench 225. I haven't done it in like a year. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I really don't know about this one, so got the safeties on. It's going to be really embarrassing if I can't do it, but I'll probably still keep it in. Recognizing your own failures is important. Let's go. Come on. Oh, baby. Nice. Oh. I swear it did touch my chest, too.